Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Beyond the Forecast, our second episode of the show, joined by meteorologist Kevin Appleby over there. I never know where to look, the camera or at you. It looks kind of funky, but we'll figure it out.
I'm somewhere.
Yeah, we're both somewhere, right? So I think last week went well. Talked about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we did. We talked.
Yeah, about the weather and a couple of other things that are coming up. We're going to do a quick overview of what is to come this week, and I'm sure you notice our scruffiness getting a little more out of control.
That's a good way to put it, Rob.
Yes, we'll talk about that as well, where we are at our fundraiser, and go from there. So let me bring this graphic up. This is actually a new one that they were able to make for us to make our graphic a little bit bigger, so it's a little bit easier for folks at home to see. Hopefully, I know last week we watched, it was a little difficult. So this week, we're going to talk about what happens when we get the forecast wrong. It happens. You know, we don't try to hide behind anything. It does happen. We're human, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about our accuracy as well, because I think people may be surprised at some of the numbers that we figured out. So winter storm forecasting timelines, that's an interesting one.
It's important.
Social mediaologists, we kind of talk about this one almost every winter. Gets a little out of control on the social media timelines. And what does a La Nina winter mean for us here in the Northeast? Kevin, you kind of did a deep dive on that. We'll chat a little bit about that afterwards as well. So a jam-packed show this week. We'll get right into it. So first want to bring you guys a quick update on the snowfall forecast competition, because there's been a lot of debate. It's over. But it's not.
It's not over.
And the reason for that is because we put the stipulation that it has to be the first inch of snow in Albany. Now, we have seen an inch of snow now, but it was in two different systems.
That's right.
So, Kevin, I don't know if you want to kind of take this away or talk a little bit about this.
I understand. I mean, it coated the grass. It coated rooftops.
Yes.
It coated decks.
And in some cases, we had what? Close to half a foot.
Well, yeah, over in the upslope favored areas to the east,
Yep.
for sure. In Albany, did not get an inch of snow with one particular storm. And what I'll say is, when we submitted these guesses, we were all under the understanding and agreement that we needed 1 inch of snow to accumulate from a storm, and that has yet to happen. So I know we got our first snow, and it did stick on things, but Albany did not record 1 inch of snow from one storm, and so we're all still alive. Otherwise, we all would have missed by 2 or 3 weeks.
I think we would have just said, you know what, none of us win this year.
No Hershey bars.
Even though it was close for Matt, but none of us win.
It's 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, I know. We'll yeah. we're just gonna glaze by that just a little bit.
Everyone's still alive.
Yes. So now we just wait. I mean, and right now it doesn't really look like there's anything big coming. So
Nope.
End of November is looking pretty good for me. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, early December looks better. Let's keep going.
We'll see. All right, so I want to put this up full screen, and we will chat about this. Actually, I don't think we have a full screen option here, so that's on my bad. So I apologize for that.
But the QR code's big enough.
It should be big enough. So obviously, No Shave November. We keep growing our beards here. Kevin, you can actually see yours this year. Last year was a little tough. Even mine, I think, is a little bit thicker this year than it was last year. So
getting better.
So far, we've raised just over $1,100 as of our recording on this. So I don't know if we're maybe too ambitious this year, but we are trying for $8,000. Last year, we raised $7,500 for the American Cancer Society. All the money stays local, and I wanted to make sure that was a thing. I think that's a big driver for people to donate to things if the money is staying local.
Yeah, and all of us know somebody.
Yes.
Or a family member, friend that has been impacted by this. So very important to keep putting money into this, because one of the best causes you could submit money to, honestly, is cancer research.
I don't think you can go anywhere and not encounter somebody who has some impact from cancer. So that's why I think it's so important that we always kind of draw the attention to this. So I'm glad that we've been able to do that. We've had the opportunity to be able to do that now for 2 years.
Yeah.
So Capital Region is so generous. I'm sure we'll be able to get to our goal. Just a little slow start this year. That's all.
And that's okay.
It is okay. It is okay. All right, now we're going to talk about the weather. And what happens when we get the forecast wrong? And then we'll talk about our accuracy, Kevin.
Yeah.
Obviously, last week there was a wind event, never really materialized, and folks kind of drug us through the mud. I don't know how you say it. Whatever the word is there, and it happens. I know how I feel if I get a forecast wrong. I think I know how you feel. Because as it's going wrong, I can see the the breakdown over on Kevin.
Yeah, you could see in text messages from
yes.
the weather team. They're like,
I can show it. No, we put so much time and effort, and it's our passion. We want to be right. We're not trying to be wrong, despite what some people say. And I know there's a lot of people out there that understand. They understand that, sometimes we're going to be right. Most of the time we're going to be right. I should put it that way. Sometimes we're going to miss it. And, we beat ourselves up over it more than I think is known to the public.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think people realize.
I personally, let's say, a good example is you make a snow map, and from the start of the storm that things are not going according to plan.
those are the worst.
Yeah. So right away you're like, oh great. We make a map, we put it out to the public. We want to be right when we're putting out a forecast to the public. And right away it's not gonna work out the way you were expecting. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I have trouble sleeping when that happens. It is not something I enjoy doing.
And that's not an exaggeration. Literally, I think that's all of us too.
Yeah.
It's not just Kevin.
I have trouble sleeping. I just feel so bad. I'm I hope people understand that. I think, like you said, Rob, a lot of folks do, mm-hmm. and we're very appreciative of that. But just know that if I mess up, I'm not just caring about my day nothing.
Yeah, it's not like you're whatever. I wish on to the next.
Sometimes I wish I could do that. I just can't.
No. And like I said, that's what happened. I mean, that's our passion, right? Yeah. So I think we would be in the wrong field if we didn't feel some type of way if we got it wrong. So. That brings us to the forecasting accuracy, because I think we're a little more accurate than what people realize. I did do a little bit of digging on this, Kevin. Yeah. This is nationally, this is just kind of, a national thing. And you know what? Maybe I'll start keeping track of our forecasts and I'll, throw it out on social media. But a typical one-day forecast is usually 96 to 98% accurate if you're watching a meteorologist. Gets a little bit different when you're talking about the apps, and we'll talk about that in a little while as well. So even out to 3 days isn't really bad. I'd say a 90% accuracy rate is pretty darn good for a 3-day forecast. 5 to 7 days, not terrible. I always tell people beyond 5 to 7 days, that's when it gets a little iffy, right? So I mean, yeah, this is basically showing
beyond 5 to 7. There are some setups where I feel very confident in what's going to happen in 7 days. There's others where I'm like, we just have to wait and see how certain features interact that are currently over the ocean. We don't know what
especially as we get into the winter. There's so many variables at play. When we get into the winter, a 10-day forecast can change about 6 different times before we actually get to that 10th day.
If you're looking at, we'll expand more into this later, but if you're looking at a 10-day from now snow map,
it's crazy. It's crazy. So that brings us to, I believe, what influences our forecast. So we did kind of say there's a lot of variables out there.
Right.
Obviously, the complexity of the atmosphere, that's just a given. It's not a set in stone thing that we're able to look at and know what's happening every minute of the day. That leads to limitations of the computer models, all the physics, all the science that goes into building those. Data quality and quantity. So if we're missing data pieces that are going into the models, you're not going to have the best forecast.
Right. Think of it this way. The balloons that are launched by the National Weather Service. You could have one in Albany, and then the next one's in Buffalo. Yep. There's one in Pittsburgh. And everything in between, there's not a balloon that collects all the data of the atmosphere while it's floating up. So you're just kind of, I don't want to say guessing, but you're extrapolating all the data, and it's
that's why models aren't perfect things, And then even here in the capital, I just threw this in here because obviously everybody that's lived here for any amount of time knows that the terrain here plays a big role. If you were out west, Rochester, or in the middle of the country, everything's flat.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
I mean,
here is just
easy. You go to Kansas. It's just it's like a slow incline, but That's one thing I will say, and like most folks out there are aware that terrain really can
Yes.
influence, well, let's just say influence the weather, because it can hurt your chances for rain, or it could really help your chances for precipitation, I should say. We're in the winter now, I should say, or the winter time, winter-like weather. I should say precipitation. Get in that habit, Kevin Appleby.
Yes.
Get in that habit.
Because, I mean, everybody knows the valley could be seeing plain old rain. You go outside the valley a couple miles and you're, several thousand feet up and you're dealing with snow or a mix, depending on the setup. But
Yeah.
that brings us to how accurate are the weather apps. So what's your favorite weather app?
Rob, great question.
I shouldn't ask.
It's funny because I people will ask me like, well, what weather app do you use? I'm like, I don't.
Yeah.
And that's because we're looking at the guidance at work 5 days a week, and let's be honest, Rob, we're looking when we're off as well.
Yeah. Especially if there's something coming.
Yeah, so we're looking, and even if we know the models are a little bit different with their solutions, or they're inconsistent, or we just look at it and we can tell that it's not realistic, we still can look at all of the runs of guidance and have an idea of the possibilities. And let's just say it's rare that I'm caught off guard, but because I'm like, okay, like I guess this
There
certain
are
model
times
was
it
right.
happens.
Maybe caught off guard wasn't the right phrase, but I generally know what the temperature is going to be for the
Yes,
next week. I
that's
generally
fair.
know
That's
if
fair.
it's going to be bright or not. So, things do change. But when you look at it every day, why would I have an app on my phone that tells me what I already know? So I don't know what the best weather app is.
I don't use a weather app. And when I was doing some digging on how accurate they are, there's really not a lot of specific data because they're pretty much like, oh, it depends if you're using this app or if you're using this. So it all depends on what app you're really looking at. It decreases, though, because the apps are relying 100% on automated models. There's no human interpretation. So you could see in the morning, the app is saying it's going to be 50 for tomorrow. A new model run comes in, and guess what? That's going to change it down to just say 42 and rain or something, just for an example. That's why you see those crazy swings sometimes in the automated apps.
Yeah, sometimes they update like once an hour, and you're
Yeah,
like, "This is
it's
not what I said
crazy.
an hour ago." Just from what I've gathered, like my friends will be like, "It was so different this morning." Like I don't. Like I said,
And you're like, yeah, I don't know what model they're using.
Like Rob, I'm so not used to models that like when I go on vacation, I'm just like, oh goodness, like what's happening?
Yeah,
I feel so
It's
unprepared.
crazy. It's
funny.
crazy. And also another thing is too, they normally offer a generalized forecast for a very large area. So trying to get a specific location, it may say it's for Albany, but it's kind of just for the area, you know. And understand that obviously apps do have a margin of error, especially with temperature predictions. I don't think they're very good. I mean, how many times have we looked at a raw model output this past Sunday, for example?
Well,
Wasn't it supposed to be warm?
I'm not gonna say that
No,
we did particularly
we didn't do
amazing on
great,
that,
but the models were much warmer than what
Oh, yeah.
what we were forecasting and ultimately what ended up happening.
yeah,
So
they were just not in connect
yeah,
with reality.
not the
That's what
greatest.
happens.
Well, this is going to bring us to our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk about winter storm forecasting timelines because that's very important going forward, and we're going to talk about the social mediaologists. That'll be a fun topic. Don't go away. Well, welcome back to Beyond the Forecast. We've already talked about how accuracy matters, obviously. You all know that at home. We all want to be as accurate as we can. How about winter storm forecasting, though? Because this is where it gets a little tricky. And I know a lot of times people are like, well, what's going to happen 3 weeks from now? It's it's impossible. It's impossible to know. People will post. Well, we'll get to that because that's the social mediaologist thing. So let's talk about the winter storm forecast timeline. So typically 6 to 8 days out from an event, we're starting to pay attention. We're starting to look at things. We're starting to say, okay, there's something that we're watching. We might say that in our forecast, but we're not going to give any details because we don't have them.
And even prior to that, like we're checking the model runs at that, we'll say 9, 10, maybe 11-day range. We're still looking at everything. But once they still have it in that 6 to 8 day window, especially if it's more than one model, that's when you're really starting to look at different atmospheric phenomena.
And they may all have it. It's just different placement.
That too. You're starting to look at how are things oriented. That's where you're starting to pay attention to at 6 to 8 days, and it's still so far you don't get into the specifics.
No, even in 4 to 5 days, you're looking for the consistency. Like Kevin just said, you're trying to make sure that the models aren't jumping back and forth. That is an effect that happens sometimes, especially with bigger storms.
Yes.
They'll have it one day, they'll lose it the next day. So it gets a little tricky on that. But our confidence does increase within that 4 to 5 day time period, especially if the setup makes sense. Sometimes the models will be putting something out and you're like, this just does not make sense. Sometimes.
It does happen.
2 to 3 days, that's when we start to really introduce it into the forecast. We start to ramp it up. We start to tell you guys, hey, it's going to be snow in the mountains. It's going to be rain in the valley. It's going to be sleet, where the transition line is. We can kind of get a general idea for timing and location. Maybe start to dabble at the idea of totals. With snowfall, I don't like to do that prior to like 2 days in advance.
Right, because you're setting yourself up to make huge changes if you do it beyond 2 days.
Unless our confidence is extremely high, which doesn't happen very often in winter, 2 days is usually when you'll start to see our snow maps here at with the Storm Tracker forecast. By the time we're 0 to a day out, we're identifying all the specifics, exact timing, locations that are going to get hit the worst, overall threat impacts, especially, again, as we mentioned, with the terrain. You may have some light snow in the valley, but maybe we're talking about a foot or two in the mountains. So big differences over very short distances.
Isn't that the most fun, Rob?
Love it. Otherwise, hey, we wouldn't be doing what we were doing, right? If we didn't like it, we do like the challenge. Sometimes though, but that's why I don't have a lot of hair on my head, because it's the winter months where I'm just pulling it out of my head. This brings us now, Kevin, to the social mediaologists.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, and how can you tell?
That's a good question.
A lot of it is these pages that are posting outrageous snowfall numbers weeks in advance. It'll say something like, watch out, by Christmas, we're going to be talking about 3 feet of snow. I saw one today for the 46-day snowfall forecast.
Ooh.
You can't go off of that because I've seen that posted so many times in years past, and we don't see a flake during the 40, you know what I mean? So be very cautious with that. Catchy headlines, always telling you to share with everybody. They're going for the clicks. They're going for the shares. They don't really care if they're right or wrong. Like, you know. I was going to show examples on here. I just didn't want to call anybody out in particular. You just don't know who these people are.
You see, like, it'll be like another thing. I mean, this is getting probably too specific maybe, but sometimes they'll post like off model runs.
Yes.
Because there's basically a lot of models come out 4 times a day.
Yep.
And the 12 and the 0Z, which is like the mean time of the world in England, that's what it's based off of, 24-hour Z time, Greenwich Mean Time, what they have in London, England. Anyways, basically there's 2 of the 4 that are the most reliable. They're taking the balloon sounding data, etc. And then there's the in-between runs. We call them the happy hour runs because they like to do things that aren't really possible. And those are the ones I always see posted, and those are the ones that as soon as I see them, I'm like, no way. I'm like, there's no way. And again, they get the most shares. It's tough to identify them, especially like if you just see the map and it's just clipped from a website.
And a lot of times though too, Kevin, I've noticed that they cut out the time of when it is. They just tell you when it's going to be, but the model itself is not showing the time.
Yeah,
and if you're looking at the models online, they have the time on there. They have the timestamp. No one can tell you exactly what's going to happen weeks into the future.
It'd be cool if we could.
It'd be amazing. But sometimes a few days into the future is tough, as we've come to realize and we've already talked about. So this is just always a little bit of a warning. Just be sure to follow trusted sources.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be us. Just know the people who manage the pages that you're following. A lot of times it could be kids, which I think it's great if they have a passion for weather. they may not understand the full complexity of the atmosphere, and they're just kind of posting things just to get their name out there almost.
Yeah,
so
if you see somebody posting the American model, the GFS model,
that's your favorite. That's your favorite.
Hang on, Rob. I'll get to that. Ask yourself, why didn't they post the European model?
Yeah.
Why didn't they post the Canadian model? Probably because it does not agree with the American model at all. And the European that doesn't agree with the American model and shows a much more tranquil output, it's not going to get shared.
No.
Oh, it's going to be 50 and cloudy tomorrow. That's not going to get clicked. You know, that's what all those folks are looking for. So
that's why if you have followed us for any period of time, if we're showing a map a week into the future, I will usually always show all three of the global models and say, this is why we haven't put any numbers out, because one has nothing, the other has 2 feet of snow, you know, or one has 70 degrees and the other has 35.
Oh,
you know,
backdoor season.
Yeah, those are fun. Those are always fun.
See you in April.
Yeah. This is going to bring us to our second break now. When we come back, we're going to break down La Nina. Kevin's got a nice little explainer on that, and we're going to talk about what it actually means for us here in the Northeast, if it has anything to do with our winter weather. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back to Beyond the Forecast. We told you we were going to talk a little bit about La Nina. Kevin, I'll let you take this away because you did record something for us, so I don't want to give it all away before we jump to that.
Yeah, so I dug into, you've heard the terms El Nino, La Nina, and we're like, okay, what does that all mean? So I decided let's explain it, and let's also discuss the impacts, if any, that it has on the capital region weather, but more specifically, because of the time of year we're in, the capital region winters. Well, you may have heard the phrases El Nino and La Nina over the years when long-range winter forecasting is discussed. I wanted to run through what exactly those terms mean and the impacts they have on our weather patterns in the capital region and across western New England. El Nino and La Nina are types of oceanic oscillations that see a fluctuation, a change in both sea surface temperatures as well as atmospheric pressure over a period of time. El Nino describes a period where in the central and eastern Pacific Ocean, weaker trade winds, or winds that consistently blow from the same direction, allow sea surface temperatures to warm a bit higher than average. La Nina, of course, is the exact opposite of that, where in that same region of the Pacific, stronger trade winds keep sea surface temperatures a bit cooler than average. These weather conditions have trickle-down implications depending on which stage of the oscillation we are in, that vary depending on what part of the country or the world that you are in. So it's not the same for everybody. And of course, keep in mind that when we talk about warmer, cooler, wetter, or drier than normal, we are discussing the entire season. There will of course be variations at times where the weather does not adhere to the long-range average, and we know that very well. Let's start with El Nino. Surface low pressure is centered in the upper Pacific, causing the jet stream to, on average, bulge northward over the western U.S., but dig a little bit farther south over our region. El Nino doesn't usually have a big deviation in temperatures for us one way or another, but consistently cooler than average temperatures can be found along the Gulf Coast. El Nino is, however, a drier climate for us generally. This is true for us and for our friends to the north and west. We're going to go ahead and show you that now. Wetter than normal conditions extend along the southern border, the Gulf Coast, and up towards the Carolinas. Now let's discuss La Nina, and all indications are, and measurements of course, point towards this winter being a weak La Nina. With La Nina, surface high pressure is anchored to the upper Pacific, sending a strong moisture feed farther north. Wetter than normal conditions are typically observed in the Great Lakes and central U.S. regions, as well as the Pacific Northwest. Drier weather typically seen along the southern border, eastward along the Gulf Coast. Cooler than average temperatures could typically be found in the northwestern U.S., with warmer than average temps seen in the southern and much of the eastern United States. Now, neither La Nina or El Nino have an overwhelming signal for us here in the Northeast to drift one way or another, but a La Nina winter is typically, at the very least, a more active storm track for us here in the capital region and western New England. Over the past 5 winters, all 5 have finished with below normal snowfall, again, since the winter of 2020 and 2021. 4 of those winters were various intensities of La Nina, 20 to 21 through 22 to 23, and of course last winter. The only exception, the very warm winter of 2023 to 2024, which was an El Nino. So it's important to consider El Nino versus La Nina as one of only many factors when creating a seasonal forecast.
That's some interesting stuff, Kevin. I don't think people really realize that.
Yeah, it has. That oscillation has more significant implications, I think, for other parts of the country. But obviously, I mentioned it. The La Nina generally is a more active storm track, and that doesn't always mean it means more snow. It just means more storms. You're still fighting a day or two out about the mix line. So,
well, look, I was gonna say, look at last year. I mean, we just had the cold air.
Yep.
We suppressed those storms so far south because it was very active.
Yep.
We just didn't get a lot here in the Northeast.
Oh, so cold. I mean, I was putting that together. I was reminded how warm it was the winter prior. So, last winter was cold. It was just a winter of 1 to 3.
And this is a graphic that's just kind of showing weak La Ninas in winters past, and you could see.
Oh.
There's not a correlation. There really isn't. Some of them see significantly above normal, some quite a bit below. 2005, 2006 stands out, 30.2 inches. That was it. A snow lover's nightmare on that in that season. But it's tough. It's tough sometimes. There's no direct link here in the Northeast.
There's not, especially because I mentioned it, but a lot of the storms come down to the wire, and a couple mile deviation is everything with winter storms.
Yep.
So seasonal forecasting, I think it's important to look at. Would love to, for us as a field to get much better at it. We got a ways to go. So it's not worth stressing about.
Well, with that, we will go to another break. We'll be back in just a few moments to kind of wrap things up here. And welcome back. Real quick before we say goodbye, we want you to be able to join in on the conversation. If you have a weather question, something cool to share, email Kevin or myself. Our emails are right there on the screen. Might be featured in a future episode of Beyond the Forecast. We love to share. We love to name drop as well. We'll be working on a couple more shows for the next couple of weeks as we head towards Thanksgiving. In the meantime, hopefully you enjoy, keep looking up, and thank you so much for joining in this week. Have a good week.